I dug this kit out of a storage box I had. I bought it so long ago I forgot I even had it. I think this will make a great addition to the stonewall section where I widened the benchwork. Now here are the dimensions. 6 3/4 inches wide, 3 1/4 deep, and 4 1/4 high. So it's not so high that would be difficult to reach over. So dimensionally, this looks like this will work pretty well. I've never built one of these DPM kits, so this will be a new experience. I have a cast chimney. Casting doesn't look too bad. All right, the kit is Laube's linen mill. And there's the instructions. Not much for instructions. Instructions, glue it together. And I'll have to cut my own windows. Have four walls, 2 pieces of styrene square stock, another piece of styrene, I assume is for the roof. Looks like I'm going to have to cut it. And some general one-size-fits-all instructions. The first thing I'll need to do with these parts is get rid of all these nubs here. And some of the parts have some flashing, and that'll have to be removed. You can see the flashing up here and here. Yeah. See, there's no bricks on this side, no bricks on this side. So these will have to meet up like this, and this edge is going to have to be squared up. So there's going to be some sanding involved before I get really going on this. Well, I got out the big guns for sanding. I got a 36 grit sanding block here to try to get these trued up a little bit, get the bottoms cleaned up and the edges squared up. So now I'll move forward and see how well I got it. I've washed the wall sections with dish soap, and now I'm starting to assemble the building. And the fit isn't perfect, but I think it'll be all right. One thing I'm happy to say is using Tamiya extra thin cement, these sections bond together very quickly. It'll be interesting to see how nicely this comes together. I have the 4 walls all glued together, so I'll let that set up for an hour or so. I'll let the glue dry. One thing, this plastic takes to that Tamiya extra thin cement extremely well. Well, I have the 4 walls glued together. I guess overall it went okay. You know, there's a few issues with like this decorative trim here. Doesn't continue around the corner. But sanding the edges, I got the edges to meet up pretty well. And the same here, you know, you can see the brick on the corner, it doesn't continue to the edge. So that's kind of a negative. I have this DPM roof and trim kit, and it has some of these brick pieces for inside the roof. It has a couple pieces of styrene to use as a roof, and then it has some of these roof features. So I'm going to go ahead and use parts from this kit on my building. I'm going to spray the inside of the building with some dark gray primer. My trees are dropping their leaves by the bushel-full. So I'll go ahead and spray the inside of the building. Getting ready to paint the outside of the building. And my base coat, I'm going to use AK surface primer. And you can see this is for German armor, but I think it'll work good for a brick base coat. And it's spraying fine. All right, well, I think that looks pretty good. Now on the top of the building, you can see here, I have a bunch of gaps that need to be filled in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this putty and I'll take a toothpick and apply it to the top of the building. And then what I'll do is I'll take this Tamiya Extra Thin and this brush. I'll dip the brush in this cement and then I'll spread the putty out on top of the building. Now this cement has been used with putty for several years, so there's a whole lot of putty in here. I don't use it for anything else. So first, I need to get some putty on the building. And I only want to do a small area at a time because this putty skins over pretty quickly. So I'll do this end piece. I want to be a little bit careful. I don't want to get it on my bricks. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cement. I'll just remove the applicator. And I'll just dip my brush into this cement. And stipple this putty. Now the cement in the brush will make the putty, will thin it out and make it easy to move it around. You know, you think about the pandemic, and of course the COVID pandemic was bad news. But one industry that benefited from it is the hobby industry, you know, modeling and that sort of thing, where people were quarantined and they need something to do. And brands like Mr. Hobby that were relatively unknown in the US, and these are high quality products. You know, people search these things out, and now, you know, this stuff's available in the US, and they make some really good products. You know, in my opinion, we're in a little bit of a golden age here as far as modeling is concerned. We have some really great products available to us. You know, the locomotives are better than they've ever been. Rolling stock. You know, if you're into armor models or military models, the military kits are absolutely insane how good they are. And, you know, it's a pretty good time to be a modeler. Well, my putty is dry to the touch, but it's not ready for sanding yet. So what I want to do now is I want to start painting my window trim, painting my doors. And the color I'm going to use is this light tan. This is actually a German Dunkelgelb for tanks. I have a lot of armor paints because I did armor modeling for 4 years. But this will work fine. Be a tan color for my windows and doors. It'll look good with my brick. I have the windows, doors, and the concrete painted on the model. So next, I'm going to take these colors. Again, these are all military colors other than the red and the yellow. And I'm going to mix up some different hues for bricks. With these very tiny bricks, which are difficult and time-consuming to paint, and I'm not sure that even painting the individual bricks will give a better result, I'm painting the different colors in this manner. All right, well, the bricks are painted. Looks like a mess. Well, I have some Robert's brick mortar formula. I'm going to apply this to the building. And once it dries, I'll wipe it off using a piece of foam that I get damp with water. I'm going to try to keep this off my windows. The Robert's brick mortar formula has dried to the point where I'm going to try to start taking it off. So I took this piece of foam and I got it damp. So now I'll just start wiping it off. And I hope just to wipe the mortar off the top of the bricks and leave it down in the mortar joints. I'm going to give the entire building a first over wipe down, and then I'll see what I have. And I'm trying to get the foam wrung out pretty well. It's damp, but I don't want a lot of water in it. All right, so I'm going to let this dry for a little bit and see what I have. But I can already tell I'm not too happy with this paint. And this might have to be repainted. All right, painting all these little color blotches in there. I would say that was an absolute failure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repaint the building and just start over. You know, I have the base coat of red down, so I don't think it'll be too difficult to get the bricks back to being red. But all this, no good. That is no good, and I will not do that again. All right, well, I repainted the brick red, and then I went and used some very dark red painted bricks and then a gray color painted bricks. Now it's difficult for me to paint bricks on this surface because the bricks are very small and they're not real well defined. So I gave it my best shot. And then I repainted above the windows and doors. So what I'm going to do now is reapply the mortar. I have the building coated with the mortar, so I'll let that fully dry before I start wiping it off. Because of the way these bricks are molded, it leaves a lot of the mortar here in these joint lines, and you can see just how much mortar's in here. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to clean this up a little bit more. I think what I'll do is I'll take it from another direction. And again, I just simply take a piece of foam here, get it wet. And it's not really wet, it's just damp. So I'm going to take another pass at cleaning the mortar out. And like I said, the mortar lines in this molding are just really wide. So in some of the better kits, like some of the better Walthers kits, the mortar lines are much more narrow. And so I don't end up leaving so much of the mortar on the building. But, I'll keep working this and try to get this mortar out to a point where it looks good enough, where I have it the way that I can live with it. Well, I think it's time to go ahead and put a clear coat on the building. I don't love the mortar on here. With the molding of this building, it's difficult to get real clean mortar lines. Sometimes putting on a clear coat can tone some of this down. I'll see if that helps. But regardless, I'm going to move forward with this building. And, it'll just be what it is. So I've touched up some of the paint where I needed to. And I believe it's ready for a clear coat. I'm going to be using this MIG Matte Lucky Varnish. And I'm using my trusty Badger Patriot 105 with a 0.3 millimeter needle. This is an absolutely excellent general purpose airbrush. If you're starting out and you want a good airbrush, this is a good one, and it's not overly expensive. I've had this airbrush for 7 years. I clean it thoroughly every time I use it, and it still works like it's brand new. This is a really good airbrush. All right. And this varnish, you just use it straight from the bottle. It's not the best varnish I've ever used, but I'll use it because I have it. I have my compressor set at 13 psi according to the gauge. So with this varnish, clear, you want to paint with light coats. And then you want to let it flash dry between coats. So I'm going to want to give this multiple coats. And I should probably be wearing gloves, but, I'm not. All right, I'll let that flash dry for a few minutes, and then I'll give it a second coat. All right, as you can see, my airbrush is spotlessly clean. And that is the secret to a long life. Also, make sure the needle is perfectly clean. And I do a pretty vigorous back flush after painting with the airbrush. Now the building, you see the clear coat is starting to dry and the mortar is starting to come back. But it'll be interesting to see if it makes any difference in the intensity of the mortar. But as the clear coat dries, the mortar's showing back up. The clear coat is dry to the touch. And you can see how the clear almost eliminated the mortar in a few areas. In other areas, it toned it way down. So it looks quite a bit better than it did. Like I say here, like in this area, it's almost completely gone, as well as here. So I was going to use this in the stone wall section as a trackside building, but I may actually use it in another location now, depending on which side turns out the best. Now, if I like this side the best, once I'm done with it, then I'll probably use it as a trackside building and have a small dock here. But if this side looks the best once I'm done, I may use it in a different location. This is one of those projects that it hasn't exactly gone the way I would have liked, but I'll just keep working with it and I'll just see where it ends up. So I'm going to end this video here. This is going to be part 1 of the DPM Laube's linen mill. We built the building, primed it, painted it, repainted it, redid the bricks, redid the mortar, and clear coated it. So it's ready to move on to the next step. And we'll pick it up again in part 2. So I want to thank you for watching. And I hope you come back and join me for part 2. Thanks again for watching.